yes, there is a growing interest in private markets, but it's fairly uncharted waters for many investors as well. How can investors decide if investing in private markets is for them?
So now that's a great question. So like I mentioned, there is access, there is transparency. And so part of what will increase ability. So, when you have a public company, you have access to a wide amount of data. Every quarter results are published, and the earnings report and so on, and you have access to data. In the private market, when you want to invest, the access to data is limited. So there are two aspects here. One is from the company's perspective, from the issuer of that security or that company which is in question. How does it provide access to some amount of, you can't afford to provide the same amount of information or quantity of information as a public company, but how do you provide access to limited set of information? Second, with actually technology, there is a lot of publicly available data which today it's not in an organized form for in the private market. So what is the landscape in which the company is operating? What has been the trends that are happening here? Even company specific information sometimes is available in the public domain, but not well organized enough. Organizing data around some of this is beneficial for making a transaction happen or for people to invest into this sector. And it actually benefits all stakeholders, including the company itself, because the company then, solves the problem of existing investors or incumbent investors or employees who want to have some kind of liquidity, as well as potentially attract new investors into the company itself, not just for secondary transactions. So it all boils down to the second aspect that I mentioned. In some sense, it's data and transparency into these markets that will increase. Today there is access available, but it's limited. It's limited to a few set of investors only. Yeah.
One of the things we strongly believe, and the reason why we like Qapita so much, and we want many others to be successful actually in the market. I mean, you talked about a very large opportunity and the fact that uncharted waters, right? You can't take a piecemeal approach to solve this problem. I think you have to take a holistic approach. And in that context, Ravi talked about transparency and data-driven, decision-making. And when you have that transparency and data, that induces confidence, right, in people when they're making the decisions. So it starts with, if you look at cap tables have become very complex, right? All kinds of instruments. I mean, safe notes, bridge, debt, equity, common, preferred, all kinds of instruments. That's a fairly complex piece. The whole ESOP structure, and how do you manage ESOPs, right, is another complex element. Then you look at the tax component primarily, right? And the compliance component of all of this. And on top of all of this is the transactions. How do you enable transactions? And all these things coupled with data so that people are making fairly educated decisions while fully understanding the risk. And that's why you really need to build the operating system. And many companies are attempting around the globe. I mean, we've got companies like Carta or Forge and companies like Qapita, trying to do this for all of Asia and even, MENA. And so that's how, how do you really create a safe zone, chartered zone in these uncharted territories? You got to build this operating system.
Revolutionize your startup's equity management with Qapita. Request a demo today.